Good morning, class. Today we are going to start our first chapter in first unit, that is reproduction in organisms. This whole unit which deals with reproduction in living organisms, carries 14 marks in your board exam. So let us start. To start with, reproduction is one of the main physiological activities which are essential criteria for living organisms. Reproduction can be defined as the phenomenon by which an individual reproduces its offspring, which is also called as progeny. As we say, reproduction is one of the physiological activities or the phenomenon by which an individual, an organism, produces its offspring or progeny. We can also say that it is not only the defining unit of living organism. It is not only the defining unit of life. It is only the distinguishing unit between living organism and non-living organisms. The essential criteria of living organism we have already studied in the first chapter, that is Living World of 11th standard. In your lower class, you have already learned about the two modes of reproduction. That is asexual, which is also called as uniparental, and sexual, which is also known as biparental. Okay, so let us study one by one. Asexual reproduction is called as uniparental because it involves only a single parent to obtain its offspring. If there is a single parent involved in such kind of reproduction, there is no involvement of gametes. And as there is no fusion between gametes, it leads to production of similar identical organisms which are identical to each other after asexual reproduction, as well as they are similar to their parent organism also. So they are called as clones. Whereas sexual reproduction is a biparental method in which two parental organisms are involved. As two parental organisms are involved, there is production of gametes. The gametes are sperm and egg, which fuse to form zygote. This process, in simple terms, this process is called as syngamy. This we had studied in 11th standard double fertilization, where we studied about two types of fertilization which involves production of seeds in plants, angiospermic plants, by syngamy and triple fusion. Syngamy is only the simple fusion between sperm and egg. We call it as syngamy. Now let us take both the modes one by one and we'll discuss this. Asexual reproduction can be carried out by organisms in different ways. This we have already studied in 10th standard, but we have to revise it. We will just recapitulate once more. First type is fission. What is fission? Fission means splitting. So splitting can occur in two ways. It can be either binary, that means the parental organism splits into two, divides into two, or it can be multiple fission. Example of binary fission is amoeba. The classic example is amoeba. And multiple fission is exhibited in Plasmodium. Plasmodium is a protozoan which causes malaria. It's a malarial parasite. The second type is budding, which is observed in yeast, hydra. Third is fragmentation. Fragmentation means the breaking of the organism's body into smaller fragments, which we can see in Spirogyra. Next is regeneration. Regeneration occurs in unicellular animals like planaria. Let us revise this. Fission, where one parental organism divides into or splits into two daughter cells. Multiple fission. In multiple fission, what happens? The single spore of Plasmodium forms multiple nuclei. There will be karyokinesis in multiple numbers, and this cell will, after karyokinesis, will follow cytokinesis for each individual nuclei and will form an encysted wall around all the nuclei which are formed during karyokinesis. And once the cytokinesis is complete inside that parental organism, the cell bursts open and forms many small Plasmodium spores. Clear? In budding, a single cell of yeast starts producing, after maturation, starts producing a protrusion on the body like a small bud, and this small bud, it starts forming the cellular parts, and once it is matured, it detaches from the parental organism and forms a new cell. Okay, like this they form a chain of cells which are formed due to budding. So these are called as buds. Fragmentation in Spirogyra can be studied like this. The Spirogyra has a filamentous body. Okay, this body starts dividing from the septae. Septae part, it splits, okay, and forms two fragments, which later on forms its new extended body. So this way fragmentation occurs. Regeneration, the same with the planaria also. If the body divides into three parts, if it divides into three parts, it forms individual new organism for all the three parts. This way regeneration occurs in planaria. All these asexual reproduction types are for unicellular organisms. Now we'll see how asexual reproduction occurs in plants and animals. In animals, it can be seen in lower organisms like fungus, algae. They reproduce through formation of such reproductive structures, which are called as conidia in case of fungus, zoospores, which can be seen in Chlamydomonas, Here, one more question sometimes is asked, like what is the difference between zoospore and zygote? Here the term zoo before spores means this organism is movable, it is motile, it has a tail-like structure which helps, the flagella, which helps in movement of such spores in water. That is why they are called as zoospores, nothing related to sexual reproduction. So zygote is what? Fusion of sperm and egg results in a single cell diploid structure, that is called as zygote. But zoospores are the asexual reproductive structures, okay, which have flagella or any any organ for moving, and this leads to its motile nature, and that is why it is called as zoospore. Next is gemmules. Gemmules are seen as reproductive structures in sponges. Now you have studied about sponges in 11th standard. It belongs to which phylum? Porifera. Fine. So these are the asexual methods, few asexual methods which we can see in animals. Now we'll see in plants. In plants you have studied about vegetative propagation in 10th standard, which was about how the structures, vegetative parts of the plant like leaf, stem, roots, they are helpful in asexual reproduction. Here in 12th standard we are going to learn about the same vegetative propagation method through reproductive structures which are called as vegetative propagules. Vegetative propagules are the specialized reproductive structures in plants which carry out asexual reproduction. It's an important topic in exam as vegetative propagules. In a case-based question, like diagram will be given, you have to identify the different types of vegetative propagules, or maybe 1 or 2 mark question on name any 5 or any 2 vegetative propagules and give an example of it and explain the structure. So few vegetative propagules which we are going to discuss here is, first is runner. Runner means it has a speciality, like the stem keeps on growing, okay, and when it detaches from the soil it can grow as an individual plant. This can be seen in strawberry. Then next is bulb. This we can see in onion. Onion, again I'm saying it is a modified leafy structure. Many of us we think that onion is a stem because the leaves come out from it. No, the green part, the green structures are leaves, as well as the inner layers, the many layers. When we cut onion and we find those layers, these layers are part of leaves only. The stem of onion is the opaque structure which you find at the bottom of the onion, from where the roots arise. Okay, so this portion, the opaque white structure, this is the stem, and these are the leaves, the scaly leaves. Okay, so this is called as bulb, onion bulb. Okay, it is modified into such structure. If we cut the roots of the onion and we keep it in water or even in the soil, it again starts growing. Next is bulbil. A similar structure is seen in agaves. Rhizome. Next is rhizome. Rhizome can be observed in ginger. You all have seen ginger? If not, try to find it out at your home. See, observe a part of ginger. You will find there is a flap-like structure, very transparent, translucent, just like a polythene sheet over it. This sheet structure is its leaf. And whole body of ginger is a stem. Rhizome is what? It is a stem. Okay, so ginger actually is a modified stem. And the flap-like structures, the translucent sheet-like structures which we find is the leaf. The next is tuber. Tuber you can study with this potato. It is again a modified structure, it is a modified root, and when it starts forming those eye buds, these eye buds are what? These are the stems which arise, okay, stems, and the green part is the leaf. And tubers, they can also reproduce, they can also form the new plant, new potato plant if they are cut into pieces and they are sown separately. Next is adventitious roots. Adventitious buds which we see in bryophyllum. Okay, this is all about your asexual reproduction in unicellular organisms, animals and plants. Now let us switch to sexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction, as we have discussed, involves fusion of gametes. Fusion of gametes. And what is this process called? Syngamy. The sexual reproduction in organisms involves the study of their lifespan in 3 phases. These 3 phases of growth are juvenile, that means the young stage just before attaining the sexual maturity, and the next one is reproductive phase, which is the onset of sexual maturity, and the last one is senescence. What is senescence? Senescence is the aging of organism, which is because of slow metabolism, which becomes slow, and then it leads to death of the organism. Okay. The phases of growth, these phases of growth, they are characterized by, these phases of growth are marked by roles of hormones, different hormones. These hormones help in determining the biological clock of any organism for these 3 phases: juvenile, reproductive and senescence. Young stage, reproductive, that is reproductively active stage, where the organism is actively involved in reproduction, and then senescence, that is aging and leading to natural death. There are few exceptions, like this is the we can say this is the scheduled lifespan of any organisms which undergo sexual reproduction. But here some exceptions are there, like bamboo reproduces. Here reproduces means we will take the term for plants as flowering. Flowers only once in its lifetime, and its lifetime is around 50 to 100 years. So in 50 to 100 years it blooms only once in its lifetime. The next exception is this, you have to learn, because this is very important part as MCQ, you can say, or maybe case-based question. Anything can be asked from this. Okay. The next one is Strobilanthus kunthiana, which is also in general name called as Neela Kuranji. Okay, now what is the peculiarity about this plant? This plant flowers only once in 12 years. So this is its peculiarity. You can see its pictures. You can surf on internet and you can find. So very lovely plant. You can see the flowering of Strobilanthus. But don't forget the spelling, don't forget the name. You have to learn it, okay? Strobilanthus kunthiana, which flowers only once in 12 years. And the next exception is bamboo, which flowers only once in its lifetime, that is 50 to 100 years of lifespan. Few terminologies which you have to learn related to the sexuality in organisms. This can be discriminated on the basis of the presence of sex organs present in the individual organism. Like on the basis of the presence of only one sex in organism. It can be either male or female. Okay? Or on the basis of the presence of both sexes in one organism. So that means either an organism can have only one sex out of male or female sexes, or it can possess both the sexes in the same body. So let us see. In plants, I'll tell you about plants first. Okay. Plants. The plants which have different, you can say, which have different sexes in separate plant body, those are called as dioecious. Dioecious or heterothallic. Okay. Dioecious or heterothallic. If we talk about separate sexes in separate plant body, that means one plant will be having only the male flowers and another will be having only the female flowers. Here by male flowers and female flowers, I mean the presence of stamens and pistil. So in plants, the presence of only one sex organ, either male or female, categorizes the plants into either staminate or pistillate. These type of plants are called as dioecious or heterothallic, means the plant body is different for different sexes. The example for staminate type of plant is papaya, where the male plant and female plants are different, and for pistillate it is corn. The plants which have both the sexes present in the same plant body are called as monoecious or homothallic. Both the sexes are present in the same body. The same plant body possesses both sexes, and that is why it is called as monoecious. In animals, the organism which possesses only one sex organ, either male or female, Such animals are called unisexual. And animals which may possess both the sexes in the same organism body are called as bisexual or hermaphrodite. Hermaphrodite example is like earthworm. Okay. These are the few terminologies which you have to remember, because we are going to come across these terms again and again in the next chapters. Okay. Now, the growth phases we had discussed, like juvenile, which is the young stage of the organism, and when the organism matures and attains its sexual maturity, then it is forming the reproductive phase of the organism, where it is capable of reproducing the gametes and fusion of gametes occur, and which leads to the production of new progeny. And once the reproductive phase is over, the individual organism undergoes slow metabolic rate, which leads to its natural death, and this is its aging period, which is marked by senescence. Then we discussed about sexuality in organisms, where the presence of only one sex in plants or animals, or there can be both the sexes present in the same organism. If only one sex is present, the plants are called as dioecious, and if both the sexes are present, plants are called as monoecious. Whereas animals, if one sex is present, either male or female, then they are called as unisexual, and if both are present, then either bisexual or hermaphrodite. See, here don't get confused with the terms. Unisexual here means one sex present in one body. Dioecious means eicious word is for the body. So there are two organism body involved for two separate sexes. That is why dioecious. Here it is bisexual. That means both the sexes are present in one body. Whereas in plants we term it as monoecious. Eicious means body. So both the sexes are present in one single body. That is why monoecious. Understood this? Now, animals are having different sexual behavior once they attain sexual maturity. Once the puberty has been attained, they show different types of sexual maturity behavior. Okay, like in animals, the sexual maturity is marked by ovulation in female organisms. The ovulation occurs in different ways in different animals. Okay, where estrous cycle and menstrual cycle, these two cycles are the features for the ovulation. Estrous cycle means the cycle which here the cycle terms means the cyclic changes which occur in the reproductive organs of females, that is ovaries and oviducts. Okay, so this is called cycle, and there are two types of cycle: estrous cycle and menstrual cycle. Cyclic changes which occur in the ovaries and oviducts of animals, they are characterized by estrous cycle. Now, what are these animals? These animals are specifically the non-primates mammals. To understand this, you have to remember in 11th standard we had studied about mammals, and I told you mammals are of two types: primates and non-primates. How do you distinguish between these two? Prime word means which are the primemost, the topmost. Primates are those which are walking on 2 limbs. Non-primates are those mammals which walk on 4 limbs. So this is very easy to distinguish between mammals, the types of mammals, primates and non-primates. So non-primates are those which are using 4 limbs and primates which use 2 limbs. So estrous cycle is mainly observed in non-primates mammals, where the mating period is marked by a specific heat period. During this specific heat period only the cyclic changes occur. In menstrual cycle, these cyclic changes in ovaries and oviducts of primates occur every month. So there is no as such specific heat period, as the cycle occurs every month, but in estrous cycle there is a specific heat period. In that particular heat period only the female organisms will ovulate, and this is the time where they are capable of mating. On this basis, the animals are now categorized as breeders. Breeders means breeding. Breeding in animals means mating. So one is seasonal breeder category, another is it is continuous breeder category. Okay, seasonal breeder and continuous breeder. In seasonal breeder, the animals allow mating in specific season, which is their heat period. Whereas in continuous breeders, animals don't have any specific season for mating. They mate throughout the year, irrespective of seasons. So when I say continuous breeders, they are capable of mating throughout the year. That means the menstrual cycle is observed in such animals. Okay, and estrous cycle, which is the seasonal or which depends on specific heat period of the animal, is exhibited in seasonal breeders as well. So we can write the examples also, like menstrual cycle is observed in primates when I'm saying, so the example is humans. Continuous breeder also, example is humans. Estrous cycle, this can be observed in other mammals like cow, okay, dog, and the seasonal breeders also are the same. Seasonal breeders include, they are not only for mammals, seasonal breeders can include all the non-mammals and non-primate mammals like fish, dog, cow, cat, any example you can write, or lizard, frog. Okay, so let us revise quickly whatever we studied. We started with reproduction. What is reproduction? Then different modes of reproduction, asexual and sexual reproduction. Then asexual reproduction types we had discussed, and then we discussed about the sexual reproduction. In that we learnt about the terminologies, that is syngamy and different sexuality in organisms on the basis of the presence of sex organs in them. And on that basis, we studied about the growth phase like juvenile, reproductive and senescence. And then we learned about the cycles and breeders. Okay, thank you.